Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I wanted to provide some encouragement to someone on Reddit to quit their job. He posted a video about a shop that he works at that, in his opinion, is scamming people. Now, to be clear, I don't know much when it comes to repairing motor vehicles, tractors, lawnmowers, any stuff like that. The closest I get to working on anything with wheels and a motor is my electric bicycle, messing with the PID loop inside of a phase runner and messing with the stator, the rotor, the nylon gear, or any of the parts that tend to break inside of a Bafang motor. But that being said, I don't think you need to be an expert mechanic to realize that what got done here on this seemingly $19,000 vehicle is not something that is $12,000 worth of work. You can see the radiator and whatever. I think that's a radiator up there. It looks kind of smashed up. That looks smashed up. This all kind of still looks like shit. This looks like it, like somebody just bit a chunk out of it and bent it. It's fairly shitty work, and he goes into detail to explain how it is. He says $12,000 for a new radiator and some work with a welder hammer and a heat gun on the plastics. Condenser is still smashed to bits, but flattened out a bit, and the missing rows are still welded up. He says this is the finished product, not worth $12,000 ever. Wish I had the before pics, but the front end was completely smashed. Everything was put back with a hammer, heat gun, and a welder. The radiator was replaced, AC condenser was just bent into place, and the holes were welded up. The bumper was straightened with a heat gun, and besides, the price, this is not how you do this ever, in my humble opinion. My boss specifically said we weren't allowed to use new parts, so they charged somebody $12,000 for it. And one of the comments says, you need to get out of the scam shop. Now, I just wanted to give you my experience being in a similar situation and hopefully some encouragement to follow what they say in the comments and get out of that scam shop. As I mentioned, at the end of 2008 and the beginning of 2009, I was kind of destitute. I was broke and I wasn't doing well financially. I had just decided that I was going to get certified to become a health insurance salesman. I spent my last money on that. You can imagine how that went with my views on insurance. That was money down the drain, and one of the studios that I was working at closed down due to the recession and also the fact that it was kind of run like shit. And the other studio that I worked at that was more prestigious, Avatar Studios, I had quit to go work at the smaller studio where I felt that I had a chance to build a career. So I was down on my luck. I had spent the last of my money and I was kind of broke. And I went to work at this place around the corner from where I am now called Laptop MD. They paid you a flat rate of, just for the fixes that you do. You got paid if you fixed it. You didn't get paid if you didn't fix it. And there were a few things that kind of sent me over the end of my rope. I needed a soldering iron to do a repair, and they gave me a piece of sandpaper to clean the tip off of the soldering iron where the tip was virtually black. There was no cleaning this even if you put it in tip cleaner. It was a cheap iron. The tip probably would have been just a couple of bucks, but they couldn't spend a couple of bucks on a soldering iron tip. They needed me to try and sand it down, which barely worked and was fairly horrible. Then I wind up doing a repair for a customer. It was a board repair. I believe it was an A1181. I honestly didn't know much about what I was doing at the time. This was a complete guess as to what was wrong, and I just so happened to get it right. And the customer had denoted that they didn't want to spend more than $250 in the check-in sheet. Board repair is $350, and since I had completed it and they didn't want to pay $350, the other one wanted to pay $250. Rather than compromise, since I had already done the work, I don't get paid again. I already done the work, and I had taken the parts off of a donor board. They just had me break it and give it back to them broken. So I had to kind of pretend that I was giving it back to them broken, and then do the whole wink and nod thing when you give it back to them and say, "Don't tell anybody this actually works." And the thing that got me to the end of my rope is there was this one dude that would stand behind me and kind of micromanage and bump into me all the time. I wound up ripping something as a result of him just staring over my shoulder the entire time and hitting me because he was fairly overweight and took up a lot of space. But I remember listening to him explain to somebody that very same day that this guy had a bad charge port in his laptop and it wasn't charging. So he tells him, okay, you need a new charge port. It looks like your charger killed your charge port. If you get the charge port fixed with us, we'll give you a charger on the house. And it was I forget the rate. It was like $150 or $200 for this. It never needed a charge port. It just needed a charger. So the guy paid the company over $150 for a charger. Not even an OEM charger, like some shitty eBay charger they had lying around. And that was it. I went into the office and I said, I'm done. They said, well, we still owe you about $80 or $120 since you did 2 or 3 repairs. You should come back on this day. I'm like, dude, you can keep your money. I know how you make it. I don't even want it. I left. and I started working on this business. I had about $268 left. I used it to buy a couple of A1181 screens and a screwdriver, and off I went, and the rest is history. I wound up taking several of their employees. My current store manager, Steve, actually got fired from Laptop MD a long time ago, and I think he kind of wears that as a badge of honor, because that's the way he does business is the exact opposite of how they were doing it. And he's been working in a few months. He will have been here for 9 years, and I'm humbled and honored to have somebody of his skill set as the manager. He's not only the manager, but he's also the lead data recovery technician, and he's mentoring 3 people here right now who are junior data recovery technicians. And I also took their best tech a few years later. I believe his name was Milan, and he wound up he worked here for about 5 years, went on to start his own IT company, moved to, I believe, Texas or Nevada, and unfortunately, as I mentioned a few months ago in the community post, he passed from COVID, I believe, in Nevada, which was sad, but I did manage to take their best employees and start my own business, and I believe at this point, my business has actually grown to be larger than that business. To this day, I still get emails every now and then. Like, I got one email from someone that works there or worked there like a while back saying, I need to talk to you and tell you how this place is scamming people. You need to know this. And it's like, dude, no. I already know this. Like, there's nothing I can do. I mean, what I can do is I started my own company, and my own company outgrew that company and does business my way. And honestly, as much as I like to say that I'm an honest person and I would have run an honest shop regardless, how disgusted I was watching the way they dealt with customers, and just the pain that I felt knowing that I was a part of working there for 4 days really contributed to the way that I run my repair shop now, the way that I treat people, the way that I have, the honest manner in which I do business, the fact that everything is done in front of you. I kind of started my business out. If you look on archive.org, you'll see that it says, we do everything in front of you. We show you all the stuff we're doing. All of that kind of started from the fact that I wanted to show people that I was not like that company. And it actually did very, very well. Again, deciding that I'm going to do the opposite of what they do, I went from having $268, a couple of screwdrivers, a little tool to get the inverter wire in. This little thing that you got at Radio Shack was like a bent pointy stick for $7, and a few A1181 screens into a company that employs about 12 people. I was scared to death when I left that I would be completely screwed and destitute, and the exact opposite happened. People were yearning for someone that did business in an honest way, that offered something that they didn't offer. And what I did is I actually started marketing myself to specifically all of their flaws. So they would take a week to order the part. I said, I'll have the part right in front of you. They would offer a used part that was pulled. I'd say you can see proof that my part is new. They would charge $50 more when you showed up with a bullshit fee. I would say the price you pay is the price that you see. It will not change like it will when you call X or X, Y, or Z. When they would diagnose something away from you, I said, I will open the device and I will do all the diagnostic work in front of you and explain to you why it is the way it is, rather than take it into a back room and then just to give you a price and not show you why it is the way it is. And that wound up making my business explode. I specifically targeted it to everything that they were doing wrong, and it gave me an opening in the marketplace. So this is what you could do with this place. You could go and say, oh, does this look like something that should be $12K, or is this? We're not going to do that. I to be honest, when it comes to condensers and radiators, I don't know jack shit about it. But are they saying you should do this to a condenser or radiator and then charging you this? No, this is the right way to do it. Here's how we would do it, and here's a picture. Hell, you could even use the work that got done there in the before and after picture. Here's the way they do it with the price. Here's the way we do it with the price. So, fucked up work, $12K. Really good looking work, I don't know, $1 or $2 or $3K. I honestly don't know what the prices are with it. But you get the idea. You could actually use all the things that they're doing wrong in your own marketing materials, and it's going to speak to people because it's the truth. Most marketing material is pure wankery, and it's not based on reality. It's based on creating a false reality in people's heads. You actually have in-depth knowledge into how, in your particular community, in your particular area, how fucked up repairs are being done and how they're being sold to the customer, what they look like, and what they cost. You can include that truthful material in your advertising, and it's going to create a world of trust between you and your customers, because you're not using marketing wankery. You're actually speaking to their real experience based on what they get when they go to other shops in the area. It was the right decision. And, I was on the fence about whether or not I should do it. And just the idea right now that I could still be making a flat rate like $12 an hour or $40 per repair working there versus having my own company, doing things my way, really like having doing things my own way, but doing things right, and having the opportunity to watch that blossom into something over the past 12 years is priceless. And I had that, like, I think I had that same gut fear, like the guttural fear that you have right now, which is, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills if I quit this place? What if it doesn't succeed? What if I'm screwed? And what I would suggest is look at the fact that your boss is able to make money doing what he does. Imagine how much more money you could make. Imagine how many more customers you can make happy by fixing things for people right and not giving back people shit that looks like this. I talked to my dad when I was debating what I should do in this scenario, and I'm just kind of smiling because this is a 13-year-old conversation at this point. And one of the things that he said, I remember saying something along the lines of, I don't remember exactly what it was. It's like a 13-year-old conversation. It was something along the lines of, I'm not sure if I would be able to be successful or going out on my own or starting my own company or offering my own service, or if I'm going to be able to make money. And he's like, well, damn, you don't really have a lot of faith in me as a father, do you? I'm like, what are you talking about? And it's like, this guy doing this stuff is able to make money with his own company. He can pay rent in Manhattan. He can pay employees. He can get customers on a daily basis, and you think that you can't. Wow. What does that say for what you think of yourself? Maybe you should think a little better of yourself. Because I was thinking, well, what if I fail? And he's thinking, look at how low the bar is, that this schmuck can run a company that does business in this way and be succeeding, and you're thinking that you can't. And, I wind up getting a smile on my face and posting my Craigslist and Backpage and Kijiji and New York and OLX and classifiedads.com ads and working on my crappy little website and, putting together my little page of what separates us from the other popular repair shop that's going to show up first. I actually wound up making a little dialogue that said, here's what they're going to tell you on the phone. Here's what's actually going to happen when you show up. And when this happens when you show up, here's why you should actually come here. And then I wound up getting customers that said, oh yeah, they told me $149 on the phone. And then when I got there, it was $199 to $240. And you were right. And then they show up to me and I would do the actual job for what I quoted and they'd be happy. And it just kind of turned into this, and it wouldn't have turned into this if I let the fear get the best of me. So I want to have the conversation with you that my dad had with me, which is, if you're worried about quitting because you think you may not be able to make it as a mechanic, your boss is making it as a mechanic right now. So think about just how low the bar is right now, and think about what it's going to be like for you when you set the bar that much higher and actually manage to do good work for people. So even if you're not going to quit tomorrow, please, please, please start creating your exit plan. Start stashing away money that you can use to buy some of the tools and parts that you need to do your job. When you deal with customers, start giving them your business card instead of your boss's business card. Start giving them your information rather than his information. Again, and you may think this is an immoral thing to do, but if your boss is going out of his way to tell you that you need to fuck over his customers, then I think you have a moral duty to give them the information of somebody that's not going to do that. And if that's you, then so be it. But the longer you stay in a place like this, the more likely you are to not leave. Like, the longer you stay in an abusive or shitty situation, the more likely you are to kind of accept it and think, well, that's just the way things are, or I guess I should deal with it, or, the Department of Consumer Affairs hasn't come in, or the police haven't come in, or somebody hasn't come in and shot the place up, I guess, so everything's fine. And that it's not fine. It's not okay to stay in places like this. It fucks with your heart. It fucks with your soul. And when you go home, you just feel like shit. Like, again, for the 4 days that I spent at Laptop MD, every day that I came home, I felt like I needed to take 2 showers. Like, one for my body and one for my soul, because I knew what they were doing. I knew what they were doing to the customers, and I stayed. And like, to this fucking day, I still feel guilty that I spent 4 days there. Like, I could have went there, oh, okay, I see what you guys are doing, and left. But it actually took me 4 days. And I know it sounds corny. It's been almost 13 years now, because this is the beginning of 2009. But I still feel guilty about the fact that I didn't walk out on day one. Like, once I figured out who you were, I thought to myself, I'm broke, maybe I should deal with it, maybe I'll get something out of it. It took me 4 days to finally say, fuck it, I'm drawing my line. But what I can tell you is, the longer that you let it go on for, the longer that you stay in that situation, the more difficult it's going to become to draw that line, the more difficult it's going to be to separate what your boss is doing from what you're doing. Because, again, if your boss tells you to do this, and you do this, what happens is you start to become complicit in it. you start to become complicit in it because those are your actions, and the guilt by association kind of starts to make you feel guilty. And once you feel guilty, you start to feel subconsciously like, well, I guess I can't really criticize my boss because I'm helping him, I'm enabling him to do this. So by criticizing him, I'm criticizing myself. Do your best to get out of there as soon as you can. Don't think about quitting your job. Start taking the steps and actions that you need to do it. If I had stayed at that place 13 years ago, this YouTube channel wouldn't exist. A lot of the right to repair advocacy work that I do wouldn't exist. The educational materials teaching people how to do board repair, none of this shit probably would have existed. I still would have been staying there, you know, telling people that they're lucky because when I replace their charge port, I'm also going to give them a free charger because you're such a good customer of ours, when I'm just handing them a fucking charger because that's all they needed all along, and going home feeling like a slimy skis ball piece of shit. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Have you ever worked for a shop that does work like this? How do you deal with it? Have you worked at a place like this where you left immediately, or do you feel like you can't leave because you just kind of gotten used to it, and now you've become a party to it, and now that you're enabling it to happen, you kind of feel this guilt by association, where if I disconnect from my boss because I say he's a scammer, that I'm admitting that I'm a scammer myself. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video.